So the Oscars were a couple days ago, and I've been very busy ever since Sunday. So I've finally talking about it a few days later. I'm gonna go over what I liked about the show. I'm gonna go through the winners, the hosts, the presenters, the montages, tributes, any speeches that were given, and yeah, so on and so forth. For the most part, I thought this was a fine show. I didn't think this show was the most amazing Oscars out there, but I will say I thought it was better than last year's Oscars. Definitely better than some of the few Oscars that have been out there in the last couple years. So, as I'll say going forward, but I'll just dive into all these categories and such. So, first up was Best Supporting Actor, which was won by Kieran Culkin for A Real Pain, which that was something I predicted. I think they kind of wanted to get that category out of the way first because they knew that he was going to win. Even though Kieran Culkin was good, I kind of wanted to see someone else win, like Guy Pearce, but everyone knew Kieran Culkin was going to win this category. Best Animated Feature was won by Flow, which I'm not too surprised by. I would have loved to have seen Wild Robot take this one, but Flo was not really surprised considering it also won the Golden Globe a few weeks ago. Also, it was really cute to see the cat from Flo with its own Oscar. I thought that was really adorable. Best costume design was won by Wicked, which was not really a big surprise. That the costume design in that movie was just incredible, and no surprise that I won that. Best original screenplay was won by Anora. Not really a big surprise. Conclave won Best Adapted Screenplay. Again, not a really big surprise. Best makeup and hairstyling was won by The Substance, which I am so glad about. I feel like it was a long shot a while back, and now it's like I'm actually really glad it won. The makeup, especially in the last third, was incredible. Meanwhile, the best film editing went to Anora, which I'm okay with. I thought the editing was pretty good in that movie. I would have liked to have seen it gone to The Brutalist, only because like that movie was 3.5 hours long and it kind of felt like nothing at times. And I felt like that should be more commendable than the editing in Anora, but you know, I don't vote for the Oscars, but I'll talk about that in a bit. Meanwhile, Best Supporting Actress was won by Zoe Saldana for Amelia Perez. I'm okay with it. I mean, I do like her as an actress. I wasn't a big fan of the movie, not as much as I don't hate it as much as everyone else does, but I thought the performance was fine. Nothing really Best Supporting Actress worthy, but I thought she gave a good speech. But other than that, I don't know. I felt like it was kind of a weak year for the Best Supporting Actress category. Meanwhile, Best Production Design was won by Wicked. Again, no surprise. Shiz University, The Land of Oz, incredible. And a lot of that was actually built. And I'm like, that is impressive. So I'm actually glad that it won. Meanwhile, Best Original Song was won by El Mal from Amelia Perez. Again, kind of a weak year for the Best Original Song category. Most of the songs I couldn't care about. And I wonder, like, why don't they? Now, this year they actually didn't have the best song nominees performed this year, which is usually a tradition at the Oscars. And looking at the nominees, I'm like, yeah, not really a big surprise. Most of the numbers are not really that great. So as far as the song goes, I don't care. At least this is the end of Amelia Perez's Oscar campaign. Meanwhile, I'm not going to talk about the documentaries. Best sound and best visual effects were both won by Dune. No real big surprise for visual effects. Sound, I would have liked to have seen it gone to something else, maybe a complete unknown, just to kind of give it something. At least you could give it to another Timothy Chalamet movie. But as far as like visual effects, that was not really a big surprise. That was basically the front runner ever since it came out back in March last year. No surprise, really. Best cinematography was won by The Brutalist, which I'm really happy about. It was a gorgeously shot movie. Sorry, I'm looking at notes as well. It was a gorgeously shot movie. I'm really glad that it won. No surprise to me, really. I really like that. Best International Feature. This one I was really happy about because I'm Still Here managed to win. Like, I'm really glad about that. I thought that was better than Amelia Perez. I thought Flo was better than Amelia Perez. And I'm really glad that I'm Still Here still managed to walk away with something. And it was definitely worth watching, especially if you don't know what it is about going into it. I do think it's very fascinating. I do think it's very well done. Very powerful movie. Definitely a very relevant movie. And I do think that this movie definitely deserved the Best International Feature Film. Best Original Score, also won by The Brutalist. I was really happy about that. The score in that movie was just incredible, especially just hearing it in an IMAX theater was just powerful. Meanwhile, Best Actor, Adrian Brody won for The Brutalist. Part of me is happy because I thought his performance was incredible, spectacular. But I'll talk about his speech later. I'll talk about that in a bit. I would have liked to have seen someone else win this category, maybe even Timothy Chalamet, which that sounds weird because I thought that movie was a vanity project at first until I saw the movie, but I digress. Adrian Brody winning it only kind of upsets me because it's kind of like Emma Stone from last year. She was the only woman in Best Actress category who had won an Oscar, and then she wound up winning an Oscar again last year. And it's kind of the same thing. Literally, all the other actors, Timothy Chalamet, Coleman Domingo, Ray Fiennes, and Sebastian Stan, none of them have won prior. So, and the fact that Adrian Brody wins again is kind of upsetting. Again, great performance, and I can understand why he won, but at the same time, I'm like, maybe it could have gone to someone else. Maybe Ralph Fiennes, Timothy Chalamet, anyone. But oh well, I digress. Best director was won by Sean Baker for Anora. Not really a big surprise after one editing and screenplay. Not really that surprising. I'm not really too surprised because all the other directing categories didn't real other directors in that category really didn't stand out too much. I mean, Brady Corbett, I thought he was going to be the shoe-in, but then I guess that AI controversy definitely destroyed that movie a little bit. But it's just unfortunate because I do think it is an excellent movie overall. I'm happy, but and Sean Baker, he kept giving speeches and such. He literally mentioned to Quentin Tarantino when he was presenting the award. Yeah, there would be no Honora without you casting her in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So I thought that was pretty cool. And he championed independent cinema, which I thought was really fantastic, especially considering like all these like big movies that keep coming out and kind of they don't really do as well as they used to, but and hopefully we can see like smaller movies kind of like break out, movies like Honora and such. Meanwhile, Best Actress was won by Mikey Madsen for Honora. This was the big shock of the night. The second biggest shock of the night after I'm Still Here winning Best International Movie, because Mikey Madsen, she didn't really win any of the precursors, so it's kind of a shock that it was like that she even won. I thought everyone thought Demi Moore was going to win. I thought Demi Moore was going to win, but she didn't. And it's like one of those ones where I'm actually not mad. Like, I do think Mikey Madsen's performance is spectacular in the movie. I do think it's admittedly a better performance than The Substance is. I kind of figured they were going to give it to Demi Moore because of her narrative, where it's like she used to be this big, Hollywood star, and this is kind of like her big comeback movie, and then unfortunately, by the time they got to the Oscar, she didn't win it, which is unfortunate. But again, Mikey Madsen carried Honora. She was incredible in that movie, and definitely worth watching. She makes the entire movie spectacular. So I can understand why her performance was the one that won over someone like Demi Moore in The Substance. And then Best Picture was won by Honora, which by the end of the night, it was not really a big surprise. Honora had won the most Oscars prior. It won 4 and then 5 with a Best Picture. Not really a big surprise. I'm happy about it. It was in my top half of the Best Picture nominees. I think I like The Brutalist, Substance, and Dune more than this one. But I'm not going to be too upset over this win. I do think that the film is spectacular. It is worth watching. I definitely liked it more upon a second watch. So maybe if I watch it a third time, I'll definitely like it even more. So those are my thoughts on the winners. Let's talk about the host, Conan O'Brien. Now, I was a Conan O'Brien fan ever since high school. I loved his style, I loved his humor, I loved his talk show, and I was very curious to see like him finally hosting the Oscars, because he's hosted a bunch of stuff before. He hosted the Emmys, he hosted the MTV Movie Awards one year, which is weird. And I was curious to see, like, are they going to let Conan be Conan? Because the Academy is pretty stuck up when it comes to various things. I remember reading one year they didn't allow Sacha Baron Cohen to host because he was going to take things too far. It's like, why else would you hire someone like that? Conan is a light version of that. Like, he's definitely weird, but, like, he's at least accessible. Like, your first weird comedian, I would say. And Conan, he did a pretty good job. His monologue I thought was pretty funny. He had some really he had some jokes that were like, oh, he went there. Like he mentioned the controversy surrounding Carlos Sofia Gascon, which I'm surprised he did that and that he was allowed to do that. He made a joke involving Kendrick Lamar and Drake where I'm like, I'm surprised that you're going this far. And also, there was one moment, I'll talk about it. There was something I thought where if The Substance was nominated for Best Picture, I'm like, would it be really funny if Conan kind of just appeared in like a parody of The Substance where Demi Moore takes a substance and then Conan O'Brien just randomly comes out instead of Margaret Qualley? And when that moment happened, I'm like, this is going to be a great show. This is going to be really funny. And it was definitely awkward considering that this took place at like, 7 o'clock Eastern time, which, okay. But I was actually amazed that they actually allowed that joke to go through. So they were going to let Conan be Conan. And Conan was Conan for a good portion of the show. But I wish that Conan was in the show a little bit more. Like, there are actual, like, big gaps where I'm like, wasn't Conan O'Brien hosting this thing? And I kind of wanted to see more of his antics rather than just the awards. The awards themselves were just fine, but I mainly just wanted to watch this for Conan, just to be himself. And I got that at times, but I wish I got that more. I guess they do want him back for next year, which I would be okay with. Definitely better than some of the other hosts they've gotten in the last few years, like Amy Schumer, Wanda Sykes, Regina Hall. That was an awful year. But I would love to see Conan come back. Now let's talk about some of the presenters. Most of the presenters were fine. They didn't really do too much. They didn't stand out too much. There were definitely some that kind of stood out more than others. First up was Andrew Garfield and Goldie Hawn. Andrew Garfield paid a tribute to his mother by saying, she loved Goldie Hawn's movies and such. So I thought that was very sweet. Also, they did this thing where last year they did the five best actor actress winners presenting best actor and best actress. And this year they did something a little different. They had 5 stars from a movie that was nominated in a category, but they all presented the category together. Like, okay, so for best costume design, they had Elle Fanning from A Complete Unknown, John Lithgow from Conclave, Lily Rose Depp from Nosferatu, Bowen Yang from Wicked. So they all kind of like talked about the costume designers from their respective movies, which I thought was very interesting. I kind of wish they did that more as well. Sure, the show would have gone like an extra 2 hours, but it would have been at least interesting. The only other time they did that was with cinematography. So you had Willem Dafoe talking about Nosferatu, Zoe Saldana talking about Emilia Perez, Joe Alwyn talk about The Brutalist, and Dave Bautista talk about Dune Part 2. Again, it was kind of random because it didn't feel consistent enough. So why would you bring this up if you didn't want to do it consistently? Why not have people from movies that are nominated for best sound do that, or best visual effects do that? Would have made a little bit more sense if you kind of just did that more frequently. Again, maybe they didn't want to do the best 5 actors for some of these categories. Like talk about Carla Sofia Gascon would be kind of awkward considering the controversy she's been mirrored in. But let's move on. Amy Poehler also kind of stood out because I didn't think she was as funny as I thought she could have been. Like she's presented by herself the screenplay categories, and I don't know why. I just felt like she wasn't as funny. Maybe because it was right after Inside Out 2 lost Best Animated Movie, but it wasn't going to win Best Animated Movie, so that was kind of disappointing. Also, you don't have Amy Poehler and Nick Offerman interact at any points because Nick Offerman was the announcer. I thought they could have gotten a better announcer. Like, I love Nick Offerman. Don't get me wrong. I love Nick Offerman. I have several Ron Swanson Funko Pops, but I thought he was very disappointing as well. Another presenter group that was interesting, Scarlett Johansson and June Squibb, who June Squibb was like, "Oh, I'm really Bill Skarsgård under all this makeup." And I'm like, that was kind of funny. That was actually pretty funny. Save June Squibb. Protect June Squibb at all costs. She's our new Betty White. So I thought their duo, I thought their presentation was actually decent. So I actually liked them. Ben Stiller surprised me. Whenever he's at the Oscars, he usually does something wild and chaotic and weird. And this year was no difference. He was coming up on like a stage and such. He was being, leveled up and such. And it kind of stopped. So it was like, what do I do here? Ben Stiller, whenever he was at the Oscars in like the late 2000s and early 2010s, he would always do something weird, like come out dressed up as a character from Avatar, or come out dressed up as Joaquin Phoenix, wearing a green screen suit so no one could see him. He was wild, and that's surprising that he never hosted the Oscars, surprisingly. I guess he's kind of in the middle of a comeback. He's starting a couple movies. He also is heavily involved with Severance, which I still need to watch. So I'm kind of curious to see, like, if he's probably not going to host the Oscars anytime soon, but maybe this is more of a resurgence for him. Also, Quentin Tarantino surprisingly came out to present Best Director, which I was pretty cool considering he gave it to Sean Baker, who, again, upfront said, there would not be a Nora without you casting Mikey Madsen in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. So that was pretty nice of him. And also the last 2 presenters, Billy Crystal and Meg Ryan, which was very sweet. You got to see the legendary Oscar host presenting the Best Picture award, which I thought was very sweet. And yeah, Meg Ryan was there too. I do like When Harry Met Sally, so I thought the 2 of them together was very sweet, seeing them together, and at least they didn't have an error like Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway. Now let's talk about some of the montages and tributes that were in the show. Some of them I thought were good. The main one that I thought was really good was the opening of Wicked. First, you had Ariana Grande saying, Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Then you had Cynthia Erivo come out and sing, I forgot what song it was from The Wiz, but she sang a song from that. And then afterwards, they both did a duet of Defying Gravity, which kind of opened the show. I get why they did it. It was very well done. They were both fantastic. And I'm like, this is going to be a good show. But it was also kind of weird because right afterwards, Conan did that bit with the substance. So what do I know? As far as some of the other montages and tributes, there was one that I thought was just completely unnecessary, and that was the James Bond tribute. I don't know why the Academy loves to tribute James Bond as much as they do. Now, okay, I remember they did the James Bond tribute for the 50th anniversary, but why do you need to do a tribute now? Like, what's there to do, really? Oh, we had Margaret Qualley dance around to the Bond theme. Okay. We had some performers perform some of the more well-known Bond themes. Okay. they were okay at best, but it was literally like it was felt like 10 minutes, and honestly I'm like, you could have cut this out entirely and you would not miss a thing. This is honestly entirely pointless. Nothing against the performers, but more just this clearly could have been shortened up a bit. Obviously, there was like a lot of talk about the wildfires that happened in LA. A lot of those actors and a lot of those people in Hollywood were very affected by those fires. So there was a lot of mentions of them. They never really distracted from the show. There was one bit that Conan had that was pretty funny, where he brought several people who were involved with making sure everyone was safe, evacuated, making sure the fires were contained and such. And it was pretty funny at times. So it was mainly I'm just laughing at that Joker joke. So there's that. And as far as some of the speeches go, the speeches were okay when you got to see them. Um, I think after this ceremony, they really need to enforce the speech limits, like how long your speeches should be, because some of these speeches were cut way too short. Like for best sound for Dune, they had three winners up there for that category for that movie in particular, and only one of them did not get to speak. Wow, they just won an Oscar, and I just felt it was so insulting that they didn't have that one person speak. They allowed everyone to speak for best visual effects, which had also three people as well for the same movie. I think it was more just a reaction to that, but it just reminds me of there was in 2008, Jon Stewart actually kind of like stopped the show because he wanted to have someone come out and give their acceptance speech after they were cut off. And I'm like, why couldn't Conan have done that? Why couldn't the producers do that? Give these people at least some time to thank their loved ones. Give people time to do it. And no matter, they should set limits like, okay, how many people are here? Okay, there's three people. They each get 30 seconds, so they got 90 seconds. Fine. Let's move along. It's fine. But like, why? Why would you have this? Like, why would you do that to people? Especially considering that some of these other speeches went on for way too long. I thought Kieran Culkin's speech went way too long and kind of just felt unnecessary. Until you got to Adrian Brody, who, 22 years ago, he did something really awkward at the Oscars. And this year, he does something really awkward at the Oscars. And it's so weird because, like, The Pianist and The Brutalist are kind of the same. And he won an Oscar for both those movies. And then he winds up doing weird stuff before the ceremony. Not before the ceremony, before his acceptance speech, where he's like, okay, instead of kissing the presenter, he throws his gum to his girlfriend. I'm like, gross, dude. Just gross. I'm like, I don't think about, wait, what just happened? Oh, what? Ew, gross, dude. And then his speech went on forever, and it just kind of felt like rambling. And he even cut off the orchestra to let him finish and such. I'm like, dude, you've already done this before. He literally did the same thing 22 years ago. Oh my god. I did not like his speech. I mean, it's a nice speech, it's nice, message for his speech and such, but it definitely went on way too long. And again, it was kind of similar to his speech back when he won for The Pianist. So it's just kind of annoying to me. And again, this probably could have been avoided if you gave Best Actor to literally anyone else. And also, I gotta mention this. I was watching this on Hulu. It did cut off after the Best Director went for Sean Baker. And oh my god, Hulu, these Oscars, the Oscar ceremonies go on forever. Why would you cut it off in the last like 20 minutes for the most important category? Like, I don't understand like how they thought that was a good idea. Maybe they should just make these 4 hours. Or again, you could tighten up a lot of these. You could get rid of some of these categories. You can get rid of the short categories. Like, I can understand like the backlash when they had that ceremony where it's like, oh, we're going to present some Oscars before the telecast, and somehow the show was still 4 hours long. And that was a big mistake. I do think they need to really curb the whole speech controversy, like basically make sure everyone gets a chance to speak no matter what, and make sure that everyone who has won an Oscar is allowed the appropriate time, that they don't go over, and it's just kind of annoying at times. But I hope the Oscars are better than this next year. I have faith if they do bring Conan O'Brien back, it will definitely be an entertaining show. But just really think about just make sure everyone gets a chance to speak, make sure nobody's going too long, and make sure everyone adheres to that. So, what did you think about this year's Oscars? The winners, the host, the presentation itself, the speeches, the montages, whatever you thought, comment down below, subscribe to the channel. This is Pat. Stay safe.